He was never big on poetry until I found love notes hidden in his desk. The words were beautiful, passionate, full of longing. And none of them were for me. My hands shook as I read his most recent one, "If only I had met you first." That night, I slipped the note onto his pillow and waited. When he walked in and saw it, his body stiffened. "Where did you find this?" he whispered. I smiled coldly, right next to our wedding vows. His hands trembled, and that's when he knew he had betrayed me in ways he could never undo. I never imagined I'd be sharing my story here, but I need to get this off my chest. I've been married to my husband, Daniel, for 15 years. We met during our college days at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. After graduation, we moved to Chicago, where we built our lives together. We bought a modest house in the Lincoln Park neighborhood, a place filled with tree-lined streets and historic brownstones. Daniel worked as a project manager at a marketing firm downtown, while I balanced my career as a freelance graphic designer with raising our 2 children, Ethan and Sophie. Our marriage had its ups and downs, like any relationship, but I always believed we were solid. Daniel was the pragmatic type, logical, dependable, not one for grand romantic gestures or flowery words. I accepted that as part of who he was. He showed his love through actions, fixing things around the house, making sure the bills were paid, attending our kids' soccer games and dance recitals. I didn't need poetry or love notes. I was content with the life we had built together. That belief shattered on a rainy Tuesday evening. The kids were at a sleepover, and I decided to tackle the chaos that was Daniel's home office. His workspace was a small room at the back of the house, cluttered with stacks of papers, books, and the occasional coffee mug left behind. As I sorted through the mess on his desk, I opened a drawer to organize his files. Beneath a pile of old receipts and miscellaneous documents, I found a stack of neatly folded papers tied together with a red ribbon. Curiosity got the better of me. I untied the ribbon and unfolded the top sheet. The handwriting was unmistakably Daniel's, but the words were unlike anything he'd ever expressed to me. Your eyes, twin stars that light my darkest nights, your smile, a beacon guiding me to shore. In your embrace, I've found my paradise, a love I've searched for, now and evermore. I felt a chill run down my spine. This was poetry, beautiful, passionate, and filled with longing. Daniel, the man who scoffed at romantic movies and dismissed Valentine's Day as a commercial gimmick, had written this. But as I read through several more notes, each brimming with deep affection and desire, a sickening realization dawned on me. These words were not meant for me. My hands trembled as I unfolded the most recent note, dated just a week prior. If only I had met you first. A wave of nausea overtook me. The room seemed to spin as I tried to process the implications. Who was she? How long had this been going on? Why did he feel the need to seek love elsewhere? Our life together flashed before my eyes, our wedding day at a quaint chapel in Ann Arbor, the birth of our children at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, family vacations to the Wisconsin Dells, quiet evenings spent watching TV after the kids had gone to bed. Had all of that been a lie? I spent the rest of the evening in a daze, the love notes spread out before me like evidence at a crime scene. When Daniel came home later that night, drenched from the rain, he found me sitting on the edge of our bed, the incriminating note placed on his pillow. He froze in the doorway, his eyes darting from my tear-streaked face to the note. His body stiffened, and the color drained from his face. He picked up the paper with a trembling hand and read it silently. "Where did you find this?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. I met his gaze, my own eyes filled with a mixture of pain and betrayal. Right next to our wedding vows. Silence enveloped the room, heavy and suffocating. Daniel sank onto the edge of the bed, burying his face in his hands. "I never meant for you to find out like this," he murmured. "Then how did you intend for me to find out?" I asked, my voice laced with bitterness. "Or were you planning to keep this affair hidden forever?" He looked up, his eyes red and filled with regret. "It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't plan for any of this." "Who is she?" I demanded, my heart pounding in my chest. Daniel hesitated, then sighed deeply. "Her name is Olivia. We met at work. She's a new hire in the marketing department." I closed my eyes, trying to process the information. Olivia. The name felt foreign and yet now painfully significant. How long? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. 6 months, he admitted, his gaze fixed on the floor. 6 months. Half a year of deception. The weight of his betrayal pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. Do you love her? The question escaped my lips before I could stop it. Daniel's silence was deafening. After what felt like an eternity, he finally spoke. I don't know. Tears streamed down my face as I grappled with the enormity of his confession. The man I had built my life with, the father of our children, was unsure if he loved another woman. I need you to leave, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil raging inside me. Daniel looked up, pain etched across his features. Please, let's talk about this. I don't want to lose you. You should have thought about that before you sought comfort elsewhere, I replied, standing up and moving toward the door. Pack a bag and go. I need time to think. He nodded slowly, realizing that any further protest would be futile. As he gathered his belongings, I retreated to the living room, sinking into the couch as sobs racked my body. The days that followed were a blur. I went through the motions of daily life, caring for our children and managing work, all while grappling with the shattered pieces of my marriage. Friends and family noticed my distress, but I couldn't bring myself to share the truth. The humiliation was too great. One evening, as I sat alone in the quiet house, I decided I needed answers. I deserved to know the extent of Daniel's betrayal. With a deep breath, I picked up my phone and dialed his number. He picked up on the second ring. Hello? His voice was quiet, careful. We need to talk, I said. I didn't bother with small talk. Okay, he said, pausing for a second. When and where? Tomorrow. Millennium Park. Near the Cloud Gate. Noon. I'll be there, he replied. I didn't say goodbye. I hung up and stared at the wall for a long time. The next day, I arrived early. It was cold, gray, and the wind cut through my coat, but I barely noticed. I stood by the bean, watching reflections bend and stretch, people walking by, laughing, taking photos. Life was moving like nothing had happened. But inside, I was frozen. He showed up a few minutes late. His hair was messy, and he looked like he hadn't slept. When he saw me, he slowed his pace, almost unsure if he should come closer. Thanks for meeting me, he said. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at him until he shifted uncomfortably. I need to understand why, I said. He exhaled slowly. I don't know how to explain it. Olivia, she just listened. We talked about stuff. I felt like I mattered. You think I don't listen? My voice cracked at the edges. I didn't mean it like that, he said quickly. With her, it was easy. Easy, I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. I messed up. I know that. I watched him, wondering how long he'd been preparing that line. He looked nervous, like he expected me to explode or break down. But I didn't do either. I just stared at him, and for the first time, he seemed genuinely scared of what I might say next. Then I asked him something I hadn't planned. Did you ever bring her to our house? His eyes widened. What? No. Never. Swear on our kids. He hesitated. And in that pause, just that tiny space of silence, I knew. My stomach dropped. You brought her here? My voice rose despite myself. It was just once. She needed a ride, and I walked away. Just turned and started walking. He caught up quickly. Please, he said. It didn't mean anything. Nothing? In our home? Where our children live? Where I sleep? His face twisted. I didn't think, no, you didn't. You didn't think when you wrote those notes. When you whispered those words. When you walked her through our door. He looked like he wanted to sink into the ground. And then, another truth slipped out of him. She's pregnant. The world stopped. I felt my heart slam against my ribs. I blinked, not sure if I'd heard him right. What did you say? She just found out. She told me last week. I don't even know if it's mine. I laughed. A sharp, ugly sound. Of course she told you. Of course you don't know. But you believe her enough to tell me. I didn't want to hide it. I shook my head. You already did. You hid everything. We stood there in silence, surrounded by tourists and children and food trucks and life going on like nothing had shattered. He was staring at the ground now, like he couldn't look at me anymore. What do you want from me? I asked finally. I don't know, he said, barely a whisper. I just don't want to lose everything. You already have, I said. Then I walked away again. But this time, he didn't follow. I got back home and everything looked the same. But it wasn't. I walked through each room, wondering where she'd stood. Had she sat on our couch? Used our bathroom? Was she in our bed? That night, I pulled the notes back out. I read them again. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to see just how deep the lie went. One of the older notes had a date on it. I checked my calendar. That day, he told me he was working late because of a deadline. I remember I made him his favorite dinner. I sat at the table with the kids, keeping his plate warm, thinking I was being a good wife. That night, he was probably holding her. The rage came fast. I started tearing the notes in half, then into smaller pieces. I didn't stop until my hands hurt. Then I sat on the kitchen floor, surrounded by scraps of lies, crying until there was nothing left. The next day, something unexpected happened. I got a message on Instagram. From a stranger. Hi. You don't know me, but I think we need to talk. It's about Olivia. My heart stopped again. I replied quickly. Who are you? She responded. My name is Jenna. Olivia and I used to be friends. Until I found out what she really is. I stared at the message, not sure what to believe. But something in her tone felt real. She wasn't coming to attack me or gloat. She sounded angry. I gave her my number. We talked later that night. Jenna told me everything. Olivia had done this before twice, with married men. She had a pattern. Start at a new job, find someone emotionally available, latch on. She was careful, always made the man feel like he was the one pursuing her. And when things got too serious, she'd stir the pot, then disappear. She likes the chaos, Jenna said. She likes being the reason something breaks. Is she even pregnant? I asked. Jenna hesitated. I don't know, but I wouldn't bet on it. Everything clicked in a sick, twisted way. The notes. The poetry. The timing. The way she let Daniel tell me instead of confronting me herself. She didn't want him. She wanted to be the one he fell for, just so she could tear it apart. I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about how blind I'd been. How he'd been manipulated. But also, how he let himself be. I'm not sure what comes next. I haven't told him about Jenna. Not yet. Because now, I'm playing my own game. And I'm not done watching him unravel. The next morning, I sent Daniel a simple text. We need to talk. My place. Tonight. No lies. He responded almost instantly. I'll be there. I cleaned the house out of habit, not because I cared what he thought. I wasn't trying to impress him. I wasn't even sure what I was trying to do yet. But I knew something he didn't. Jenna and I had stayed up late talking the night before. She'd shared screenshots, texts Olivia had sent to another guy from their office. A guy named Marcus. Some of them overlapped with the same dates as Daniel's love notes. One message stood out. He thinks I'm having his baby. Men are so easy. My blood ran cold when I read that. This wasn't just infidelity. It was a game. A sick, manipulative game that Daniel had walked into, willingly or not. But here's where it gets worse. Jenna told me Olivia had a husband. A real one. They were separated, but not legally. And the guy? He wasn't some clueless sap. His name was Kyle. A construction manager who, according to Jenna, had a temper and a history of showing up when you least expected it. So I did a little digging. Found Kyle's Facebook. It was full of muscle car rebuilds, gym selfies, and the occasional Bible verse about revenge. Not exactly comforting. I didn't know if Daniel had any idea Olivia was married. If he didn't, he was an idiot. If he did, he was even worse. By the time he knocked on the door that night, my stomach was churning. He came in quietly. No flowers. No excuses. Just the smell of nervous sweat and guilt. We sat in the kitchen, the the same table where we'd celebrated birthdays, helped our kids with homework, planned vacations. Now it felt like a crime scene. "I want to tell you everything," he said, like a man walking to his own execution. "Then don't hold back." He started with the basics again. How Olivia made him feel seen, how it started with small talk, how he didn't mean for it to become emotional. I let him ramble. I watched him squirm. Then I dropped the first bomb. "Did you know she's married?" His face froze. "What?" "Olivia. Husband. Name's Kyle. Not exactly low profile." He swallowed hard. "She told me they were separated." "That's convenient," I said. "She tell you about Marcus too?" "Who?" "Another guy she's texting." "Same sweet words. Same baby lie, probably." He stared at me, completely lost. "I talked to someone. Someone who knows her. And trust me, you're not the only fool she's got wrapped around her finger." He ran his hands through his hair, looked like he might be sick. "I didn't know." "Of course you didn't. You wanted to believe you were special. That the poetry was real. That she saw you." His voice cracked. It felt real. I leaned in. "So did our marriage." Silence again. And then, just when I thought I was done being surprised, his phone buzzed on the table. He looked down and his face went white. "It's her," he said quietly. "Answer it." On speaker. He hesitated, then did it. Her voice came through sharp and clear. "Dan, hey. You said you were gonna come over. Everything okay?" I said nothing. Just stared at him. He froze. "Olivia, we can't talk right now." She laughed lightly. "Why? Your wife there?" "Yeah," I said into the phone. "She is." There was a pause. Then Olivia's voice changed. Colder. Sharper. "Wow. So she's the one snooping around now." "She's not snooping," Daniel said. "She knows everything." "Oh, please," Olivia snapped. "You think she's innocent in all this? You told me she's emotionally dead. That she stopped seeing you a long time ago." I felt like I'd been slapped. Daniel's eyes darted to me, panicked. "I didn't mean that." I hung up the call. My hand was shaking, but not from sadness anymore. From rage. "You blamed me," I said slowly. "To justify what you were doing. You painted me like some cold, boring wife, so you could feel less guilty." "I was messed up," he whispered. "I didn't know how else to explain it." "That's because there is no explanation," I said. "You lied to her, to me, and to yourself." I stood up. "And by the way, you might want to get a restraining order." "Her husband?" "Yeah. He knows now too." His face went pale again. "You told him?" "No. But I made sure someone did." Because Jenna had sent Kyle everything. Every message. Every note. Every detail. I didn't know what he'd do with it, but that wasn't my problem. Daniel left not long after. He didn't argue this time. He just walked out, slow and broken. Later that night, Jenna messaged me again. He found out. Kyle showed up at her apartment. Cops were called. She's denying everything, of course. "Daniel?" I asked. "No idea. Probably hiding." And then another twist. Jenna said Olivia wasn't just texting Marcus. She was also chatting with a guy in Ohio. And another in Portland. All through the same pattern: work, texts, flirt, pregnancy scare. She was collecting hearts like souvenirs. I was just one casualty in a long line of them. And Daniel? He wasn't special. He was just next. Now I sit here, watching the pieces fall. And I realize, it had been 3 weeks since Daniel walked out of our house. Since then, I'd gotten 3 emails, 5 texts, 1 voicemail, and a bouquet of lilies that I immediately threw into the trash. The kids knew something was wrong, how could they not? Daddy was staying at a friend's place and Mommy walked around like her shadow had weight. I tried to keep things normal. School drop-offs, dinner at the table, movie nights. But the air in the house had changed. It was heavier now. Quieter. Even Ethan, usually so chatty, had stopped asking where Dad was. Then came Sophie's birthday. She turned 7. We'd planned a party at a small bakery cafe she loved. Close friends, a custom cake, balloons. Daniel had RSVP'd. I considered telling him not to come. But Sophie wanted both parents there. And I wasn't going to ruin her day. I didn't expect him to bring Olivia. He walked in 10 minutes late, holding Sophie's gift and her. Olivia stood half a step behind him in a pale blue coat, smiling like she'd been invited. My breath caught in my throat. The whole room went still. Conversation stopped. Even the background music seemed to cut out. Jenna, who had come with her niece, spotted her instantly. She grabbed my arm. "You've got to be kidding me." I didn't answer. I walked straight to them, my hands clenched. "You brought her here?" I hissed. Daniel looked like a deer in headlights. "She just wanted to drop something off." Drop something off? To a 7-year-old's birthday party? Are you completely out of your mind? Olivia's smile didn't fade. "I just wanted to wish Sophie a happy birthday." "You're not part of her life," I snapped. "You don't get to play nice after everything you've done." Other parents were watching now. Some pretending not to, others openly staring. Jenna was filming. I didn't ask her to stop. "You should leave. Right now." Daniel looked around, clearly embarrassed. "Maybe this wasn't a good idea." "No, it wasn't," I said, my voice rising. "You cheated on me. You lied. You broke our family. And now you're dragging her to our daughter's party like this is normal." Sophie had wandered over by now, eyes wide. She didn't understand what was happening, but she felt the tension. "Mommy?" she whispered. "Why are you yelling?" I dropped to my knees, hugging her. My voice broke. "I'm not mad at you, sweetie. Mommy's having a hard time." Daniel looked crushed. For once, the guilt was real on his face. "I'll go," he said. "I'm sorry." "Not sorry enough," Jenna muttered behind me. As they turned to leave, Olivia leaned toward me, still smiling. "He's happier now." I didn't hit her, but I came close. "Tell that to the other 3 men you're stringing along," I said. Loud enough for everyone to hear. She blinked. Just for a second. Then walked out. The room slowly returned to motion. Conversations resumed, but now with murmurs and sideways glances. I turned to see Jenna mouthing, "I got the whole thing." Later that night, after Sophie was in bed, Daniel called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. He was crying. I didn't know she'd come. I didn't know she'd say that. I didn't plan any of it. I just wanted to see my daughter. I made a mistake. A huge one. And now I've lost everything. Please don't keep me from the kids. Please. I sat in the kitchen for an hour, just listening to the silence. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I felt something else. Clarity. The next morning, I filed for separation. The paperwork was heavy in my hand, but something inside me felt lighter. I told Daniel he could still see the kids, but only with boundaries. No Olivia. No surprises. Everything documented. He agreed. Quietly. Shamefully. Over the next few months, things settled into a strange new rhythm. The kids adjusted. Slowly. Therapy helped. I saw a lawyer. I joined a support group. I made new friends. Jenna and I became oddly close. She introduced me to a wider circle of women with similar stories. Some ended up rebuilding their marriages. Some didn't. I didn't. I couldn't. Because it wasn't just the cheating. It was the way he'd betrayed me emotionally. The lies he told to justify it. The way he made me feel invisible to justify seeing someone else. I wasn't perfect. I had flaws. But I loved him. And I was loyal. I deserved better. A year later, I saw him at Ethan's baseball game. He looked older. Tired. Alone. He waved. I nodded. That was all. He tried to start a conversation afterward, but I kept it short. Not out of anger anymore. Out of peace. I walked back to my car with Sophie's hand in mine. The sun was setting behind the field, casting a soft orange light on everything. I looked at her and smiled. We were okay. I was okay. And as I drove home, I thought back to that first love note. The one that read like a dream. If only I had met you first. But now I knew the truth. He never really knew what love was. And I finally had. Not from him, but from choosing myself.